Helen, is Grandpa behaving himself? Oh, well, yeah, I guess. He really shouldn't be wandering around, especially after injuring his leg. It's so hard dealing with the elderly. I wish he'd just stay put and think about those of us taking care of him. That's not really fair to say. He's fine. He's been quite senile lately. I can't deal with old folks, but you're used to it, aren't you? A few days ago, my grandfather-in-law slipped in the backyard and hurt his leg. It wasn't a major injury, but he's already 82. Given his age, it's better to play it safe and have him rest in bed. My mother-in-law, Barbara, doesn't even try to care for him, let alone visit his room. I'm Helen Williams, 30 years old. I married my husband, Mike, 3 years ago and have been living with his family ever since. My husband used to be my boss at the company where I worked, a company founded by his grandfather. By the time I joined, 8 years ago, my father-in-law was already the CEO, while the grandfather was the chairman. However, back then, the grandfather handled most of the company's core operations. Then, 2 years ago, when he turned 80, he started delegating most of his responsibilities to my father-in-law. Grandpa, thank you for all your hard work over the years. From now on, please leave everything to my husband and take it easy. My mother-in-law said with a fake smile, and I couldn't help but feel she was being sarcastic. Grandpa might be a bit stubborn, but he's a kind-hearted man with a lot of respect from others. On the other hand, my father-in-law still acts somewhat like a spoiled child. He hardly voices his opinions, and compared to his father, he's nowhere near as reliable. Plus, he tends to follow whatever his wife says. I never met my grandmother-in-law as she had passed away before I joined the family. My husband and I started dating when we worked on the same project team 3 years after I joined the company. He was a team leader and, although a bit bossy at times, he seemed very dependable to me. Having lost my dad early on and being raised by a single mom, maybe that made him seem even more so. My mom passed away due to an illness 2 years ago. Now, the only family I can really call my own is my husband. My mom fell seriously ill shortly after I got married. I decided to leave my job to take care of her. Although I had just married into the family, they didn't object, probably because of what the grandfather said. It's only right for her to take care of her mother, who raised her all by herself. Let her do it without any worries. Thanks to that, I was able to be by my mom's side every day without any financial concerns until she passed away. My mother-in-law seemed a bit annoyed, but I was truly grateful. However, since the grandfather handed over the company to his son, I noticed everyone's attitude towards him slowly changing. They don't listen to him as much as they used to, and seem to dismiss him. At first, I thought I was just imagining things, but seeing the way my mother-in-law and husband act, I can't help but feel that way. My father-in-law maintains a non-committal attitude, but it feels like he's just turning a blind eye. He seems to act as if he has no use for the grandfather, who's practically retired from the company. Witnessing this treatment towards him makes my blood boil. Don't you think you and your mom are being a bit cold to Grandpa? Oh, why? He tries to talk to you, but you barely respond, and you don't even offer to help him. I don't have time to baby old folks. You can deal with him since you've got all the free time. You don't have to be so rude. Stop nagging. I'm tired from work. Don't bother me with this. No matter what I say, he never takes me seriously. Grandpa doesn't seem to have much to say to such family members. Nowadays, I'm pretty much the only one who talks to him within the house. Grandpa, the weather's great today. How about a little walk outside? Your leg seems to be healing, and I think it'll be good for rehab. Thank you. Maybe I'll step out for a bit then. When we went to the park, there were a few families, and the children were playing joyfully. Grandpa watched the scene with squinted eyes. I remember when John and Mike were that age. Grandpa, I was so busy with work, I couldn't spend much time with the kids. Maybe that's why John couldn't praise Mike properly. He looked a bit lonely as he muttered this to himself. John is my father-in-law, and Mike is my husband. I kept wondering how we could all be kinder to Grandpa. But no solutions came to mind. Soon after, my parents-in-laws mentioned the idea of building a new house for him. This house is over 50 years old, right? The layout isn't great, and it would be better to build a modern house in a convenient place than spend money on renovations. A new house. You're getting older, and while you've been lucky with minor injuries so far, we don't know what the future holds. So, we should make it an accessible home in case of any needs, right? I see. We could place your room in the center, so everyone can easily look after you. That's a good idea. Great. So, it's decided. And about the finances. If it's a house for everyone, I'll manage it. I'll inform Attorney Smith about this, so discuss the financial aspects with him. You're always so dependable. Thank you so much, my mother-in-law said, looking delighted. It seems like she only gets close when there's money involved. But if everyone starts caring for Grandpa more in the new house, that's the best outcome. Attorney Smith not only advises the company but also manages Grandpa's personal assets. He's been trusted and used by him for nearly 30 years. He is 58 years old and one of the few people Grandpa truly trusts. I've met him several times, and he's the kind of honest person you'd think was more of a son to Grandpa than his actual sons. It's clear even to an outsider that Mr. Smith holds him in a fatherly regard. Knowing such a person is around gives me some comfort. I wasn't involved in the details of the new house, but my mother-in-law was in high spirits, looking at interior design magazines with others, so it seemed to be going well. Then, a bombshell dropped. It was revealed that Grandpa had a debt of $2 million. Wait, what's this about $2 million? From what Smith said, Grandpa co-signed a loan for an acquaintance's business. But now, that business is in jeopardy, and the debt might fall on him. We're not going to lose the house under construction, are we? The contract's already settled, and it's under the boss's name, so you're fine, Smith replied. My mother-in-law looked relieved. Thank goodness. I'm glad we did things my way. That's when I found out the house was in my father-in-law's name. That's a typical move for my mother-in-law. And she didn't even consider selling the house to help with the debt. So, this debt isn't our problem or the company's, right? It was signed under the chairman's personal name, so. Good. Then there's no problem. I have no idea what was so good about it, but while talking about it, Grandpa didn't say anything, so I didn't interrupt either. Honestly, it's not an amount of money I can do anything with. And then, a few days later, I began to notice small changes in Grandpa. Grandpa, what do you want for lunch? Who are you calling Grandpa? I'm only 50. There's no reason for you to call me that. Huh? Sorry, it's you, Helen. I was lost in thought. At first, I thought he might be deep in thought, but as it continued, I started to feel uneasy. Barbara, what are you doing? Where's my meal? Grandpa, I'm Helen. Barbara is your daughter-in-law. And you already ate your meal. I didn't eat anything. Are you trying to starve me? Could it be that the $2 million debt is the reason why Grandpa became like this? Seeing no family member trying to help him must have been a double shock. What can I do to help him? I tried to take him to the hospital, but he refused. He might not want to admit that he might have dementia. I don't want to force him, but there's little I can do on my own. When I talked to my husband, he acted as if it was none of his business. And I don't think I can rely on my mother-in-law. So, I thought maybe my father-in-law could help. Oh, I've heard about it from Barbara and Mike. Is he losing his mind? Would you go to the hospital with me? But he's not that bad yet, right? If we go to the hospital, everyone will know. I can't let people know that my father might have dementia. There are good medications now that can slow the progression. Well, there's no rush. Let's just wait and see. We have you here, it'll be fine, right? I can't believe how unreliable these people are. I can't depend on them anymore. Grandpa, let's go to the hospital. Let's get you checked out properly. Who are you? Where are you trying to take me? You're up to something. Thinking about how my once kind grandfather-in-law has changed brings tears to my eyes. Yet, my mother-in-law just laughed. He may have been a big shot once, but look at him now. Now everything, the company and all, will be ours. Hey, Grandpa still understands. He's listening. He'll forget everything soon. Wandering around, becoming incontinent. Just thinking about it gives me the chills. He's nothing but a burden now. How can you say that? Grandpa has worked hard for the family all his life. I'm torn between anger and sadness at my mother-in-law's words, but Grandpa is just laughing. See, this old man doesn't get anything. Barbara. I get irritated when she laughs like that. However, our new home will be ready soon. Maybe things will change once we move there. Considering the house was built by Grandpa, I held on to the faint hope that the in-laws would at least show some appreciation and be kind to him. 2 months later, the house was finally finished. For days on end, I've been made to pack up both my in-laws' and husband's stuff, while barely any of my own or Grandpa's belongings have been touched. Every time I try to pack my stuff, my in-laws and husband keep giving me chores to do, making it impossible to get anything done. That said, I thought it wouldn't be the end of the world since we're not getting rid of this old house. We can always move smaller items later. Then, on moving day, after most of the stuff was moved out, as I was about to call Grandpa, my husband said over my shoulder, "You and Grandpa are good to stay." Excuse me. You can continue to live in this house. We don't need any unnecessary baggage in our new place. In other words, you and Grandpa will keep living here. I'm giving you all the old man's debts too. Well, I guess you can serve as a housemaid or something. Hey, let's go now. Yeah, I'm coming. So, take care of the debt repayment and looking after Grandpa. With that, my mother-in-law and the others cheerfully got into their car and drove off. I stood there, dumbfounded. I couldn't immediately process what just happened. Was I just abandoned? And it's not just me, but my grandfather-in-law too. It meant that only they would live in the new house. I couldn't believe that people could be this cruel. It took me some time to wrap my head around it. How would I explain this to Grandpa? I slowly walked back to the inner room. I have no qualms about taking care of Grandpa. I was prepared to do so from the start. As I approached him from behind and was about to speak, he turned around as if sensing my presence. Have they left? The look on his face was completely different from the absent-minded expression he had earlier. It was like he was a different person. I thought maybe he was showing some other symptom. But the next moment, he smiled. I was completely taken aback by what he said next. As I was talking to him, Smith came in. "Chairman, have you finished cleaning up?" "Yes, it's all done. Let's go, shall we?" Where are we going?" "Of course, to our new place." Still confused, I left the house I had lived in, following my grandfather-in-law. The next month, I was bombarded with phone calls from my mother-in-law and husband. Grandpa said we wouldn't talk to them anymore, but considering there's the matter of divorce, I decided to answer my husband's call. "Hey Helen, is Grandpa with you?" I went to his old house and it's up for sale now. That house isn't worth $2 million, so there's no way he could have settled his debts. Is that why he did what he did? What did he do? Bring out Grandpa. Dad's been saying he can't get a hold of him. That sly old man did something unthinkable. I knew the truth but wanted to hear what my husband would say. Grandpa sold his company's shares to the vice president. Thanks to that, the vice president became the majority shareholder, and they held a shareholders meeting and board meeting. They've removed my dad from his position as CEO. But the vice president is well respected. Maybe Grandpa thought he was a better fit to take over the company. The vice president must have conned the old man into selling his shares. This shouldn't be allowed. You might be mistaken. Grandpa's mind is sharp as ever, even sharper than before. What? Truth be told, up until the day we moved, I really thought Grandpa was showing signs of dementia. He apparently became suspicious when my mother-in-law suggested building a home together. So, he devised a plan. He pretended to be senile to see how my in-laws and husband would react. And sure enough, they all revealed their true colors. In the end, they left me and Grandpa behind. It was exactly as I predicted. I had a hard time holding back my laughter. Grandpa had said. I was both relieved and shocked to hear this. You know the saying, to deceive the enemy, start with your allies. Grandpa chuckled as he said this. He was constantly updated about the company by the vice president and Smith. Once Grandpa stepped back, my father-in-law and husband went wild. They became arrogant, ignoring the opinions of their employees, and went on extravagant outings on the company's dime. Grandpa did entrust the company to my father-in-law at first, but seeing their actions, he had reservations about the future. So, he decided on this course of action. What about the $2 million debt? That's been taken care of. Indeed, Grandpa had co-signed a loan for a friend. But he also had personal assets that far exceeded that debt. After stepping back from his company, Grandpa made significant profits from real estate investments. So, there wasn't really any issue, but if he mentioned it, it was clear as day that my mother-in-law and my husband would have their eyes on it. That's why he only spoke about the debt. The friend in question is apparently the son of a man who had helped Grandpa in his younger days. Moreover, since then, that son managed to sell his rural land in Nebraska at a high price due to resort development, so he no longer had to worry about the debt. Are you serious? But more importantly, are you guys okay? We're not okay. Both my dad and I got booted from the company. What are we going to do now? Well, you also have the mortgage for the house. What? What mortgage? You didn't know. I thought Grandpa was covering all the expenses for the house. Don't you remember what Grandpa said back then? When my mother-in-law spoke about money, Grandpa had set the condition: if it's a house where everyone, including me, will live. This essentially meant he wouldn't contribute if that wasn't the case. Even if the house was under my father-in-law's name, Grandpa was willing to cover the costs, but only if they all lived together. You just assumed Grandpa would pay, without even checking the documents properly, didn't you? Your father not checking everything before signing just proves he didn't have what it takes to be a CEO. I can't believe. Later on, my parents-in-law, unfortunately, couldn't make the mortgage payments for the house they built and had to give it up. Now, they seem to be living in a 50-year-old apartment and struggling to pay off the remaining loan. My mother-in-law and my husband keep reaching out to me, suggesting that we should all live together, but that's out of the question now. After stepping down from his chairman position, Grandpa moved to an old countryside home in Nebraska and now lives with me. Helen, you can live wherever you like, and you don't need to worry about finances. Grandpa told me, but I chose to stay with him. If I'm not intruding, I'd like to stay with you. Grandpa had tears in his eyes when I said that. Thanks to Smith, I was able to finalize the divorce. Both my ex-father-in-law and ex-husband were excluded from the inheritance, and I was adopted by Grandpa. If anything ever happens to Grandpa, who has become a father to me, I intend to take care of him until the end. Now, we both find joy in working on our little farm together. Dad, look at this carrot. It's huge. Yo, just like your feet, Helen. Oh, Dad, stop it. The sun shines down on us, and we cherish every warm moment. I hope these days last as long as possible.